Hello and welcome to Rauta, one of those discography videos, also known as ranking videos, worst to best. This time is, for me, time to step out of my comfort zone, that is mostly black metal, death metal, thrash metal, and that kind of stuff, and talk about this band called Nevermore, a band that ceased to exist already a few years ago, and it seems there is no way coming back after all. Their vocalist Dane passed, unfortunately, away already also a few years ago. Now, this is an interesting band for various reasons. First of all, their style is kind of hard to describe in ways that a lot of bands are. I mean, some bands are just plain black metal, some bands are pure heavy metal or doom metal and the like. But, Nevermore is actually ticking quite a few boxes. It's kind of a progressive metal, but that's not just enough to describe it. It's true metal, definitely, but then again, not in the same way as, people would be talking about Pantera and lots of those followers. It's not exactly heavy metal, but it definitely ticks all the boxes. Lots of elements from progressive side to create this kind of always evolving, always progressing band with lots of different guitar things and one would say somewhat technical aspects in the music. It definitely has this kind of a trashier, groovier stuff, which I think makes this band mostly tick the box known as groove metal. But definitely there remains, signature style vocals are definitely more into the kind of heavy metal, traditional heavy metal ones, which are then again the ones that, kind of put the band in that box as well. So an interesting hybrid and not for everybody. Now, when I was finishing up my third run with the whole discography of Nevermore, I was thinking how to say it, how to describe it. And one classic example kind of got into my mind, and that is pineapple on a pizza. Now, some people absolutely love that stuff, and maybe those are the same people who, figuratively speaking, love Nevermore. And then there are people who totally dislike or at most tolerate pineapple on a pizza, and they're probably the likes who don't really give a damn about Nevermore. Now, I wouldn't buy pineapple on my pizza for sure. I can tolerate it, but not like it, which puts me in a weird position when it comes to listening to Nevermore and judging the albums here. It's a pineapple on a pizza kind of a thing, and I can tolerate it, but unfortunately I cannot really like it. Now, I originally started this discography run for the first couple of times earlier this summer, and I was about to do it right after two full spins, that is album discography ones. But then I decided to take a break, to refresh my ears, so to speak, and I did Anthrax video with the beginning. The thing here is I had already my uncomfort zone with Typo Negative going all weird and stuff like that. And then having another band, which I cannot really fully comprehend, was just kind of too much for me. I needed a break, only to come back for a third run and to figure out why I would pick certain albums in certain order and even some of those songs, like song per album. But before we go into my ranking, which is probably not that interesting, especially given the band hasn't really changed too much of their style, let's take a look. First of all, the band started in 1992, and that was also the years, if we take a look at the members list and talking about Dane being the Sanctuary vocalist also. Now the thing here is, Sanctuary conveniently ended their first, tour in 1992. And by tour I don't mean band tours, but more like how you define soldiers going into war and all that stuff, like tour of duty or whatever. So when Sanctuary kind of had it finished by 1992, it was a very, very fitting moment for this band Nevermore to come into existence. And quite a interesting list of all the members that have been in the band. So if you really take a look, especially those members who have been for a long time in the band, you can pretty much see rather interesting names, or more like interesting names with interesting lists of bands. And it all comes down, I guess, mostly to Jeff Loomis, who had been arch enemy for recent years, who have been in various bands, obviously, very skilled guitar player, obviously, and also Dane, because the defining, voice of the band. But there are also other people having lots of different bands throughout the years, even including Pat O'Brien from Cannibal Corpse. So the thing here is, it's a band that has been, having a lot of important and skilled musicians. And as such, it's no really so much as a question to figure out why this band is, so skilled, so progressive, and something else. So to define it as here as a Metal Archives groove/progressive metal, I kind of think it hits the point. But where it matters, I think, World Dane's vocals were the more of heavy metal side. Of course, the Sanctuary Legacy kind of were brought into this band with him. But two things are the defining ones, the vocals and the guitar play. Everything else is of course top-notch when it comes to skill and style. But those two are the ones, I guess, that really define the band that existed for almost 2 decades. And during those 2 decades, they did quite a few albums. As you can see here, the first album, Nevermore, the self-titled one from 1995, until the last one, the Obsidian Conspiracy in 2010. And during these 16 years, talking about the album years, they had these 7 albums. Nevermore, followed by Politics of Ecstasy, Dreaming Neon Black, Dead Heart in a Dead World, and Enemies of Reality, This Godless Endeavor, and the Obsidian Conspiracy, finally ending the career. Now, what is interesting is that if you take a look at these Metal Archives reviews, obviously these are just, mostly, I guess, some fans of the band, but, you can pretty much see how it goes up and down. From here, it's 78% for the first album, which is actually quite good considering that, but a lot of older bands, classic albums, have more than 90%. So if you compare to that segment, 78 isn't too much. Then it goes pretty steadily until here, Dreaming Neon Black, quite a notch up, then going down for a little bit, and suddenly with Godless Endeavor it's 90%, only to come on down as low as 69% for Obsidian Conspiracy. Now this is interesting because in my opinion the whole band is most of the time operating around the same field. Every album basically has a good production. There are differences, but they're minor ones, especially if you really compare to a lot of bands which operate in around various fields, sometimes going for more cleaner, sometimes more polished, and sometimes sturdier. But Nevermore really went to dirty ones. They never went full polished, but always quite good sound. Good to great, I guess, would be the rough estimate. What is also important to understand that the style never changed too much. Obviously, some of the albums are groovier, some are heavier, some are more almost like gent-like, not exactly gent, but more breakdowns and all that stuff. And some are just, flowing forward more easily. This made really hard for me, as not a fan, to rank this album because there are no clear up and downs for me. I mean, some of the albums are more like, okay, this is just okay, and this is quite good, but there are no like great ones and shitty ones, or even mediocre ones for me. And I find hard time to go just through. Even after 3 listens, I'm forcing myself to just kind of figure out which one could go first. Because really, for me, they operate roughly from 6.5 out of 10 to 7 out of 10. I know it sounds ridiculous. It sounds kind of silly that they're so close to each other, in my opinion, but can't really lie to you or myself. I mean, there are bands like Anthrax, which are at their weakest around 6 and at their best around per 9. And I could say that for a lot of my favorite bands, they're bands that are kind of lukewarm at their worst and really great at their best. And even beyond that. But it never made me go wild about it, the music, nor so much like, hey, this really, really bores the shit out of me. First of all, I was kind of disappointed with the debut album. I would actually rate it a little bit lower, like 6 out of 10 for my initial listening, like, okay, this is not my cup of tea. I was almost going to give up with the ranking idea because, it really didn't click. But obviously I figured out, okay, this is a band that you kind of need more listening to. And they could be growers, but time is not on my side and I really can't force myself to go multiple listens of a band that I really don't like. I mean, feel free to try. Feel free to give like 10 tries to an album that you really don't like. And then come back to me say like, hey, I did it. You should as well. I mean, 7 albums after all. But I did full 3 times. Maybe missing a last song here and there when I was like finished with my workout or, driving home or whatever. But still, let's say I listened to 97% full of all 3 albums for 3 times. 7 albums, that 3 times, that is. Okay, so here goes. I have some notes which I'm here because otherwise I would forget. Now my least one would be probably the first one. First of all, that's where the band is more like looking where it should go and find the natural path. Now the vocals are already right there, because Darryl Wayne was really, really skilled with his vocals. So you really can't say that there was this kind of defining years of the bands. I mean, if this had been his first album or first band, things might have been a lot different. But given that he had already this vast experience operating in a band and singing and all that stuff, it's all there. And same goes for the other things, production, guitars, drums, whatever. So, I mean, everything is here to kind of define the Nevermore sound, more than so many other bands, which then again went different paths. We don't have to start talking about, Metallica's debut album or Anthrax or Slayer, where things just, were a little bit different versus the rest of the career. But Nevermore sounded Nevermore on the very first and the very last album, and there are not too many changes. Now, why I just choose this to be one of the my lowest ranking Nevermore albums is that, with this album, it was a little bit still all over the place. It was later more focused, and the songs are more, more captivating. But there are good parts like Garden of Grey, which I would bring as the song to mention here. Also God Money. There are interesting parts like Even the God Needs Money. Criticism towards the church and religion, obviously, which always makes me a happy joke. But yeah, this is not my favorite Nevermore album, by no way. The least one. The second one, I guess, would be this Enemies of Reality. It's a very heavy album, so many ways, and almost like death metallic feeling here and there, but roughly the same ballpark is happening. The thing here is, it's kind of a lukewarm all the way through. There are no high points for me, and I had hard time to figure out what I would pick out of this one. But there's one song which I really like in terms of chorus part anyway. So it's kind of a catchy. Tomorrow Turned Into Yesterday. That it would be, even the kind of a song I would put the best of Nevermore album if I were to make one. But apart from that song, it doesn't really click with me almost at all. I mean, I can totally listen to it, but it's still that pineapple on my pizza, which I don't really like. Now, Dead Heart in a Dead World would be my third least favorite of Nevermore. Why so? Once again, it's much like by this point the band had evolved a little bit. So they got totally figured out what they are doing and all that stuff. But on the long run, given that this is almost 60 minutes of music, it's too much of an album without really good songs. Heart Collector would be probably the song that could be taken here as the hit song. But still, I think what is the most captivating song is actually the Simon & Garfunkel cover, The Sound of Silence. The very same song Disturbed made into a kind of a hit cover song. This is way more interesting, and curiously enough, it might be their heaviest song on this album. It's almost like Nevermore gone into death metal with Simon & Garfunkel. It's a great cover song, so it's kind of a sad that it's the highlight track of the album. But as their own songs, I guess the Heart Collector would be the one. And so far, I think these are roughly pretty much the same level. Now, if I had to move on from that, I guess the next one would be, Dreaming Neon Black. I had to check out my notes that I don't confuse one album for another. This is, once again, more than 60 minutes of music, which is just too much unless you're a really big Pineapple fan. Now, none of these songs, once again, really shine out from the whole mass. I mean, they're pretty okay, roughly. It's very listenable as an album. There are no annoying parts, which I really felt for the first couple of ones. I really had a hard time getting into the vocals, even though I could recognize instantly that the vocalist is great. I mean, he knows his craft and is having a good voice. It's just, for me, it's wrong band. And that's where comes this weird contrast. So, Dreaming Neon Black is once again too much on one go. It's like this huge pineapple pizza with too much pineapples. So, had it been cut into 2/3 of an album, it would have been better. But Dreaming Neon Black is pretty good song. And I guess partly or mainly because it reminds me of Typo Negative. There's kind of a gothic feeling into it. So it's almost like a little bit of a like misplaced gem. Like a lot of these albums have. I might have a repeating pattern here, but that's how I feel about it. Now, towards the top we go. It became kind of hard for me to figure out which would be my top for the Nevermore. As said, I never liked any of the albums properly. I liked some of them a little bit more than some of the rest ones, but still. So I guess The Godless Endeavor would be here as my third favorite album. Once again, 60 minutes of music, roughly give or take. And now the style is definitely more honed, but there's just like too much of it without those hit songs. Actually, this was the one of those albums I basically had a hard time to figure out. Like, there is no song that really sticks out from the rest, but it's overall a little bit better than those weaker ones. But if I had to pick a song, I guess it would be Born. Now, it seems like the band is going in the better direction even without those hit songs, because making the better albums towards the end. As you can see, I still haven't mentioned the Obsidian Conspiracy, and now we are down to top 2. And curious enough, I would pick the second album, The Politics of Ecstasy, here. Why so? Well, this is more streamlined, I guess, version of the first album. And as such, it has more potential that the band could really go somewhere. I think it lost its way along the time or whatever, but I think this could have been the way the band could have been even better. Next in line is here the hit song for me. This is one of those songs that really kind of prove the point that Nevermore can really make good chorus parts and songs that kind of have the hit potential, even though being progressive all the time. So while they have the groove, they kind of ruin the groove and flow with being so progressive, even though some people will certainly love that progressive element even more than the groove ones. But this is a matter of taste, and like I said, I'm not a Pineapple guy, so it doesn't really help me. So my favorite in the end is the Obsidian Conspiracy. Why so? Because this is overall the best one in terms of having least weak points and probably even the best songs like overall. This one, much like some of the others, like the previous one of this one, is probably most, all-around album. This is not so much a hit song album, but there are like no parts where it feels like it's dragging. And now this is only down to 45 minutes, only, but compared to 60 minutes, which I guess makes this rather light-hearted or lightweight in that sense. I don't know. Once again, this is an album I have a hard time to figure out which is my favorite song, but maybe Your Poison Throat. There is something with the chorus part that really clicks. But there are the other parts also, like the Moonrise. That could be the other one, which then again is more, softer and lighter, but works for the favor of the album. Like I said, Nevermore is out of my comfort zone. So when I'm being this judgmental, kind of a picky review guy, don't take it to yourself, this guy knows nothing, because I probably don't. But if you already like the band, you shouldn't give a damn what I say about the ranking or the albums. If you already know the band and love it, don't care about what I say. If you are, however, as newbie to the band as I was like a couple of months ago, never been listening to the band, but just want to take a virgin ride with Nevermore, I would say start with the last one. Start with the Obsidian Conspiracy, because if you like that, there might be some chance for you to like the rest, because it's the best one and most approachable one. But if you don't like the early one, you're more likely, in my opinion that is, to skip the rest. Because if it doesn't click with you, I don't know, it's going to change over time. First of all the albums are so close together. It's more like Seven Brothers, like this Finnish novel, really. So, they all are siblings. There is not too much chains between the album or all that stuff. So, tricky band in that sense. On the other hand, if you are like AC/DC, all the albums for 40 plus years the same, fucking A. I mean, if you like one, why not go for it? But if you don't like one or two albums, no other albums are gonna change it for Nevermore. Interesting, unique band, and totally one-of-a-kind combination of various styles, from heavy metal vocals to groovy guitar riffs and lots of progressive stuff. I kind of have to respect for the technicalities, the skill of the band, but when it comes to liking the band so much that I want to play it again and again and buy some of these as CD, it's a no-go. Pineapple Pizza Band, and you either like it or not. There is no middle path. This is Rauta. Feel free to hate, feel free to love, and let me know how you feel about the band in the comment section. What's next for October? I have no idea, but probably black metal. See you, and feel free to drop me ideas for ranking worst to best for album discographies. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye bye.